we got to get into the business of what went down this weekend, because your teammate, Francis Ngannou, had a huge fight. And I don't know if people are fully wrapping their heads around what happened or what they saw. And maybe I'm even misinterpreting. So I need to get your thoughts on this event. But I watched the fight on the plane. I bought it and I watched it on the plane as I was in transit back from Montana to Los Angeles. And I was blown away by Francis Ngannou's performance. And I want to talk about, I mean, the strategy was amazing. They've talked about, I've listened to so many interviews of Ngannou and Eric Nixick talking about that was part of their game plan, because Renan Ferreira was so dangerous on the feet. He took him down, executed beautifully on the ground. Those punches at the end, and I want to hear your thoughts on the technique, were so brutal. And Ngannou was generating so much power with he kind of like propped himself up and was like rotating his hips into those shots, and they were landing those were brutal thuds. It was a very late stoppage, in my opinion. But hey, it is what it is. And I know you said that fighters usually would rather a late than an early, but it was incredible. And Justin, I don't know, what's your reaction? I know he's your teammate, but what's your thought on the performance? And yeah, what do you think?
Incredible performance, and we're talking about the evolution of Francis Ngannou. No, he didn't go out there and just try and throw wild hands. He's been training boxing for his last two fights prior to this one. So I expected him to come out and try and strut his boxing skills. So for him to come out, shoot that double leg takedown, end up in a dominant position and pound his opponent out was pretty impressive. It's not how I thought the fight was going to go. I obviously thought Francis was going to win, but I thought it was going to be a slobber knocker, man. But again, Francis constantly evolving with the sport, evolving with times, has to work on his wrestling, has to focus his wrestling. He probably thought, why give this guy a chance? Because he's bigger than him, and he's going to have power in his hands. Taking him to the ground was the best option, and I wouldn't expect anything less from Eric Nixick.
Such a smart play, and I loved it. I don't know if people were disappointed. They wanted to see a stand-up battle. I did not. I thought it was brilliant, and I thought he was so exciting on the ground. And he showed his constant evolution. With, I think, the first time people were really impressed with his grappling and wrestling was when he fought Stipe and took Stipe down. And everybody said, all right, this is a very scary Francis Ngannou. He executed a similar game plan, was so dominant on the ground. And it was just a beautiful finish within the first round. So I think people got their money's worth. I wish the event was promoted a little bit more heavily, because I know a lot of people didn't even know that it was happening during the day, myself included. I found out late that, that was when it was going down. But man, it did not disappoint. It was impressive. Now, I want to talk about your thoughts now, because there's just so much to unpack here. Now that Francis won, and he won in such a dominant fashion, a lot of people all weekend have been asking the question, who is the greatest heavyweight on the planet right now? We're going to spend a lot of time on Ngannou today, because I think there's a lot of questions around Ngannou's future and what he should do next. And obviously that will be ultimately his decision, but there's a lot of things I want to dive into. But Ariel Helwani has said repeatedly over the weekend, as well as today, is that Ngannou is the lineal heavyweight mixed martial arts champ, meaning he never lost the belt in the UFC. He's come over, and then now he won a title in the PFL, meaning he is currently the baddest man on the planet, the lineal champ, meaning the greatest heavyweight fighter on the planet. What do you think about this?
I think he's earned his stripes, man. You can see the evolution from when he got into the UFC to losing to Stipe to knocking out, Stipe in the first round. He's constantly getting better. He's still, regardless of his age, he's still young in the sport, and he's at a weight class that his body isn't going to get tampered down from hard weight cuts or anything, because he walks around about what he weighs in at. So his longevity there, he's constantly evolving. Obviously, taking his opponent down, staying out of danger. Incredible game plan. I mean, it's between him and John Jones for sure.
So some people have been saying too, right? For heavyweights, a lot of times they can fight into their 40s, even into their mid 40s in certain cases. Francis hasn't taken much damage. Is there a possibility we could say, because I'm going to tell you why I'm bringing this up. How long do you think Francis would likely still fight for? Do you think? I know he's mentioned he doesn't want to fight forever and ever, and he doesn't want to go into those later years where he's struggling. But what do you anticipate?
I mean, I don't think he's going to go past a couple more years, because there's eventually going to get to a point where he's going to have so much money and so much clout that it's not going to matter anymore. And why put your body through training camps, getting punched by some of the biggest, baddest men in the world on a daily basis, when you can just kind of ride off in the sunset with all these accolades, these incredible accolades, UFC champ, PFL champ. He took Tyson Fury to a split decision win. Like, he has some incredible accolades, and I really thought from him going to boxing back to MMA. I thought we were going to see more of his boxing, but to my surprise, again, hats off. Great game plan from Eric, and great way to put the stamp on it from Francis.
I loved it. I mean, I didn't know what to expect, and he had kind of a long time off from mixed martial arts. He went through this horrific tragedy that rocked him to his core, losing his son, and he came back and just showed out, broke down in tears right afterwards. But you could see just such dominance that he possesses in the sport of mixed martial arts. It got me so excited. So the reason why I wanted to ask about how long he has left in the sport is this. I watched that fight and I was simultaneously blown away as well as depressed by it. And I'll tell you why. You saw that performance. Renan Ferreira, according to Fight Matrix, I think is ranked as the 10th best heavyweight on the planet, something like that, right? And we have Tom Aspinall in the mix. We have John Jones. I don't even think he's included in the Fight Matrix scheme because of his late inactivity, but we have all these tremendous fighters, and Renan Ferreira is no slouch. He's a very dangerous opponent, and it was incredible what Francis Ngannou did. But I think watching that, seeing the layoff and seeing the performance and how strong it was, I think we all walked away from that fight saying Francis Ngannou is still probably the best heavyweight on the planet. And it just sucks. Like, if you think about that, he's not in the UFC, and it's like that's not how it should be. He should be in the UFC. That's where we want to see him. Think about the incredible fights that are out there for him in the UFC. John Jones, Tom Aspinall. I mean, even Sergey Pavlovich. A lot of these fighters would be so fun to watch match up against Francis, and yet he just can't access them. So it's very disappointing. So this leads me to my next question, and I'm going to give you my thoughts because I've been thinking about this all weekend. What do you think should be next for Francis? And we can also talk about whether you think it should be MMA and boxing. I feel very strongly that I want to see an MMA fight. He's so good at mixed martial arts. That's where I want to see him. But that's my personal opinion. What do you want to see next?
Man, it's tough to say. The PFL has a lot of money. They're gonna start making some money moves. They need to use him in his prime. He's in his prime right now. He has a lot of value to the company. So, I mean, they're gonna have to cough up some money. I mean, I think Ferreira made like 500,000 to fight him. So
2 million.
I don't. He made 2 million. Wow.
Yeah, he Francis had that put in the contract that anybody that fights him in the PFL makes 2 million.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna with that kind of money, they're gonna get him a big matchup. It's probably gonna be some UFC vet. I hate to say, and man, maybe Stipe comes over to the PFL after he loses to John Jones. Who knows? I mean, when they're paying these guys that kind of money, I mean, guys will make money moves like that.
I mean, Pern makes a good point, and this is what's bumming me out. It's hard to find a heavyweight that good outside the UFC. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just such a shame. And this is what I'm saying. I think if you're a big fan of the sport and you saw what Francis did, it's just a bummer because I don't know what they can do. And the fight that everybody wants to see, which we're going to circle back to, is John Jones versus Ngannou. There's nothing on the planet more exciting than that. I don't think right now. That's it.
I agree.
That will blow. I think that will even beat Khabib versus Conor. I really do. It's just so intriguing. What's up, Tehran? Welcome back. So it's kind of a sad thing, but let's put that on the back burner for now. I'm going to tell you how I think maybe that could still potentially one day happen. I've been thinking about it, but let's take that off the table. If he does fight again, and let's say they get some heavyweight, they get a vet or something, I think that's okay. I'm not so intrigued by it. I go back, and this is what Ariel Helwani was talking about today. They think the biggest name value and the most intriguing fight would be Deontay Wilder, and they think it would be Deontay Wilder in mixed martial arts. Now, I tend to agree. I don't really care to see Ngannou go back to box. I'm tired of MMA fighters always going over to boxing and being at a major disadvantage. It's lame. So and fine. People want to say that he's going to destroy Deontay Wilder. Fine. That's what's been happening to in all the boxing matches. Let's see it. I want to see Deontay Wilder or a boxer take on the challenge, just like the UFC guys have been doing for ages. Take on the challenge of coming over to that sport and maybe getting annihilated. But that's intriguing to me more so, in my opinion, than somebody with not as much name value. I think that could do tremendous numbers and would be a little bit of a circus, but it would be fun. What do you think? Is that something you're interested in, or do you think it's lame?
I don't think it's lame by any means. I mean, whatever Francis Ngannou wants to do, I support. Wherever he can make the most money for his family, I support. Whether it's in boxing, whether it's
Fair.
MMA, and it's like I don't want to tell him or try to direct like this is what I think he should do because he's been so successful by making his own decisions so far. Hey man, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Wherever the money's offered, PFL is giving you great money. I think he destroys Deontay Wilder. I mean,
He does.
Deontay has little skinny legs. I
Yeah.
think it'd be a fun matchup. I would definitely tune into that because he's such a power puncher, and obviously Deontay would be working on his wrestling defense, his leg kick defense, for the whole camp essentially. I think it's intriguing. I think it's great. It'd be a little bit of a circus act, but that's okay. We tune in to support Jake Paul fighting all these MMA vets. Let's tune in and support a boxer transitioning over to MMA and see what he can do.
Yeah, and let's see it. Look, Francis has gone over and fought two of the greatest boxers on the planet. You think that's easy? I mean, that's insane.
He
He
almost
took
beat
on
one of them.
Yeah, arguably did. I think he did beat Tyson. But so he's gone over and he's done the hard work. Why not have one of these guys come back? I'm just really tired of watching it. I'm not interested in it. It's like a ping pong player battling a tennis player. It's great that Francis got to do it, and I think it was insane that he beat Tyson Fury. That's wild. And congratulations. But enough of that. Now let's let these guys come back over. And I bet you they can organize an amazing payday for Deontay Wilder. So let's get a good payday in MMA, a fantastic payday, a mind-blowing payday for both of them. Now, I'm not talking from Francis' perspective, by the way. I want him to do what he wants as well. I agree. I'm just talking about as a pure fight enthusiast,
Sure.
what would make me most excited. Now, here's the real thing that I want. And here's the real thing that I want, I think, for everybody, but I don't know how feasible it is. I can't stop thinking about John Jones versus Francis. I feel like that's the fight that if the universe was fair, this is what needs to happen. So what do you think about this? Do you think this would ever happen? Do you think that, because I don't think they're going to do UFC versus PFL. There's too much to lose. There's too
No,
much
they
at
won't do
stake.
it too much.
They,
Yep.
they won't,
They'll
they
lose
won't,
all their credibility.
they could potentially lose all their credibility. They won't do it. But what about now we have Turkey Al Sheikh in the mix from Saudi with almost like unlimited funds, it feels like. He's got a good relationship with Francis Ngannou. He's got a good relationship with the PFL. He's got a good relationship with Dana White. They did an event in Riyadh not too long ago. What if he, as a middleman, was able to broker some deal to buy Francis out of his contract and maybe he could participate? You have this UFC event then of John Jones versus Francis Ngannou taking place in Saudi Arabia. So it still benefits Saudi and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as well. Orchestrate a buyout, and he can help fund that. So it leaves the PFL in fantastic position monetarily, theoretically. And then you either lend him to the UFC or literally the UFC buys him outright, sends him back. And then we have this crazy event in Riyadh organized by Turkey Al Sheikh. And we can finally have this John Jones, Francis Ngannou fight, 2 million, 3 million pay-per-views. Who knows? Is something like this, the world of mixed martial arts better than I do. Is this total fantasy land, or do you think is there some sort of a chance?
I think it's fantasy land, man. In his Grizz, it does sound great, but Dana White won't risk Francis coming back, beating John Jones, and then leaving as soon as he's done doing that because
That's
I
true.
mean, it's all risk, no reward. I mean, they'll get a great pay-per-view, but if Francis wins somehow and then leaves the UFC after beating their greatest heavyweight of all time, I mean, the UFC is going to lose a lot of credibility, and a lot of eyes are going to shift to the PFL when he goes back.
What if they give him a 6-fight contract and they just throw so much money at him where it makes sense, and it makes sense for the organization as well? Something like that to lock him in so he doesn't leave, and maybe they can meet him on some of these terms, or is this just, it's too much?
I think he's made his decisions to not work with the UFC, and I think he's going to stand by it.
It's so disappointing. By the way, Francis, if you saw his interview with Ariel Helwani last week, I actually hadn't watched it in full until last night. And that's the thing that I think, what I do agree, sadly, that I don't think this will ever happen, though I wish it would, is he did really start to bring up some things about saying that the offer from the UFC wasn't even close to, which we kind of know, but wasn't even close to what he made in boxing, wasn't close to what he made even in the PFL fight that he just had against Renan Ferreira. So I don't know. I think you're right, but this is fantasy land. This is what I want to see. But anyways,
Sure.
I just can't believe what Francis did. And yeah, it just got me super hyped. I can't wait to see him again in mixed martial arts. And what a weekend for the PFL. I thought it was a terrific weekend.